I hid everything in a warehouse my daughter never even knew existed. No address, no spare key, not a single word. Because I learned something the hard way. The fewer people who know, the longer things survive. That warehouse wasn't just storage. It was my backup life. Equipment, inventory worth real money, contracts, documents. The kind of things that, if life ever turned on me, I could rebuild from zero. And then yesterday, my phone rang. Unknown number. Are you the owner of Unit 17? I'm calling to confirm a viewing. I paused. What did you just say? The man sounded casual. Too casual. I saw the listing online. A guy named Kyle said he's your son-in-law, told me he's authorized. Said you're liquidating everything. The moment I heard Kyle's name, something inside me dropped. I never authorized anyone. I never told my daughter that warehouse even existed. And yet her husband was selling my entire life like it belonged to him. I forced my voice steady. Do you have any screenshots? Messages? He sent them immediately. Photos of my inventory, itemized lists, prices, the exact warehouse address, and one line that made my chest go cold. Need to sell fast. Owner is old. I handle the deal. Owner is old. I handle the deal. In that moment, I didn't feel anger. Not about the money. I felt something colder. Because this wasn't greed anymore. This was a man quietly removing me from my own life. Selling everything before I even realized I was gone. That warehouse wasn't some movie vault full of gold. It was 20 years of work, equipment, spare parts, inventory that only people in my line of work would understand. Items that look ordinary until you know what they're worth. I also kept copies of contracts there, insurance papers, documents I never left at home, not because I was paranoid, because I've seen what happens when money enters a room. People change. I don't believe everyone is bad, but I do believe this. Greed can turn a good person into the worst version of themselves. My daughter, she's kind, too kind, the kind of person who trusts first and questions later. And her husband, Kyle, he's the type of man who always wraps everything in one phrase. For the family, I just want stability. I'm thinking about the future. But his eyes, they never looked at people. They looked at opportunity. He asked questions before. Casual. Harmless on the surface. Do you have other storage units? Where do you keep important documents? If something happens, who manages everything? I brushed it off. I thought avoiding the answer was enough. I was wrong. Because when you don't give a hunter a door, he doesn't stop. He finds another way in. And now it's clear. If Kyle is already listing my inventory for sale, this isn't curiosity anymore. This is control. Because to pull something like this off, he needed at least one of three things: access to the warehouse, detailed knowledge of what's inside, or a believable lie about being authorized. And here's the part that made it worse. He did all of it behind my daughter's back, because he knows if she found out, she'd stop him. So he chose the faster route. Sell first. Apologize later. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to believe them. Kyle used to ask about my schedule. Where are you going today? What time will you be back? It sounded like concern. It wasn't. It was timing. He needed to know when the house was empty and how long he had. Then came the offers. Let me help you organize your documents. I can help inventory your stuff. I'll move a few boxes for you. Help. That word hides a lot. I remember one moment clearly. I handed him my house key just for a few minutes while I moved things. At the time, it meant nothing. But to someone with intent, 2 minutes is enough. Enough to photograph a key. Enough to copy it later. There was another detail. Small. Easy to ignore. One day, I noticed my document drawer looked too neat. Not messy like I usually leave it. Aligned. Adjusted. I told myself I was imagining things. Now I know I wasn't. And then there was the sentence. A month ago. He said it like it was nothing. You have a lot of valuable stuff. If you liquidate everything at once, that's a lot of money. I laughed it off. I thought he was talking about business. He wasn't. He was talking about a plan. Because illegal sellers don't start by stealing. They start by testing. They suggest selling. They watch your reaction. And if you don't push back, they assume you're not paying attention. Then they move. Quietly. They gather information. They take photos. They build an inventory list. Which means this. Kyle didn't get lucky with my warehouse. He's been inside more than once. Because there's no other way he could list everything with prices. And that's when it hit me. The warehouse wasn't just discovered. It was already compromised. Before I even got that phone call, I looked back at the message from the buyer. Prices far below market. And one line that said everything. Need to sell fast. Sell fast. That phrase only has one meaning. Not urgency. Not opportunity. But timing. Sell it. Before the real owner finds out. The buyer told me, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Kyle's meeting me at the warehouse. He said he has the key. I let out a quiet laugh. So this wasn't just a listing. He was closing the deal. I asked one more question. Did you pay anything yet? There was a pause. I sent a deposit. Just to secure it. Kyle said other people were interested. Of course he did. A deposit means one thing. Kyle already took money. And now we were past the point of suspicion. This was execution. And here's where it turned. Cinematic. Tomorrow, at 2 p.m., that buyer would show up. And if Kyle could open that warehouse door, if he could walk in like he owned the place, then everything becomes messy. The buyer claims good faith. Kyle claims authorization. And me? If I show up too late, I'm not just losing assets. I'm losing position. So I didn't call Kyle. I called Dana. My son-in-law is selling my warehouse inventory. There's a buyer, a deposit, and a scheduled viewing tomorrow. She didn't hesitate. Do not confront him yet. Her voice was calm. Sharp. You go there tomorrow. On time. With witnesses. With evidence. And if possible, notify the warehouse manager or security. You want a record official. Not just your word. This wasn't about anger anymore. This was about control. So I prepared 3 things. Proof that I own the unit and everything inside it. Screenshots of the listing. The message. Owner is old. And a plan. Not to argue, but to let Kyle speak. Because once a man says, I'm authorized, in front of a buyer, and you break that lie with documents, he doesn't have anywhere left to go. The next day, I got there early. 30 minutes. I wasn't going to show up late like someone reacting. I wanted to be there. Before the lie even started. I parked a little distance away, watched, and that's when I saw it. Fresh handprints on the door. Scratches around the lock, small but recent, like it had been opened. More than once, I leaned closer. Through the narrow gap, I could see inside. Boxes had been shifted, not cleaned, staged. A clear path, just enough space for someone to walk through and inspect. No one organizes a warehouse like that for no reason. People don't tidy up inventory. They prepare it to be sold. I took photos of everything. Before Kyle arrived, before he could say a word, because timing matters. Then the warehouse manager came by on patrol. I stepped forward. I'm the leaseholder. Someone is pretending to be authorized to access this unit today. I need you here as a witness. He checked my documents. His expression tightened. We don't grant access to anyone without the owner's signature. Good. That's all I needed. Then stay, I said. I want you to see who opens this door. 2 p.m. A car pulled in. The buyer stepped out, phone in hand, scanning the units. Right on time. Arderling Semfen. Kyle showed up. Alone. No, my daughter. Dressed sharp. Relaxed. Smiling. That kind of confidence only comes from one thing. Thinking you've already won. and I was already there, standing in front of the door, like a wall. He saw me. His face twitched just for a second. Then he smiled. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I didn't raise my voice, didn't move. "I'm here to see what exactly you think you're selling." Kyle turned to the buyer with a strained smile. "This is my father-in-law," he said. I looked straight at the buyer. "Sir, this inventory belongs to me. I never authorized Kyle to sell a single item." The buyer froze. "But he told me." Kyle jumped in immediately, voice too fast, too rehearsed. "Dad, I was going to tell you. I was only trying to help. You're getting older, and I figured I could handle the paperwork." I raised my phone and showed the buyer the listing, the photos, the prices, and the line that said everything. "Owner is old. I handle the deal." I looked at Kyle. "This is your version of helping?" I asked. "You call me old and tell strangers you handle my property." The color drained from his face. Then I turned to the warehouse manager. "Who is legally allowed to open this unit?" The manager didn't hesitate. "Only the leaseholder, or someone with written authorization signed by the leaseholder." I looked back at Kyle. "Do you have written authorization?" He swallowed. I do." I took one step toward him. "Then show it." Silence. That was the moment he lost control of the scene. Not when I arrived, not when I challenged him, but right there when the lie needed paper, and he had none. Because in front of the buyer, in front of the manager, Kyle stopped being a confident seller and became exactly what he was, a man trying to sell property that didn't belong to him. The buyer's face hardened. "So, what about the deposit I sent you?" Kyle took a step back, and I didn't have to say another word. That's the beautiful thing about a trap built right. Once the truth is standing in the open, other people start doing the work for you. The buyer was angry now. The manager was watching closely, and Kyle finally had nowhere left to hide. The buyer pulled out his phone and opened the transfer. "I sent you $5,000 to hold the deal," he said. "You told me other buyers were interested." Kyle turned to me and lowered his voice, like that would save him. "Dad, I only borrowed it. I was going to pay it back." I almost laughed. Because when a liar says, "I only borrowed it," what he really means is, "I hoped I wouldn't get caught." Dana had been right. People who sell property they don't own always price it low. Not because they're generous, because they need it gone fast. They don't have legal ownership, so they need the money in hand before the real owner finds out. I looked at Kyle. "What did you use the money for?" He froze. For a second, he had nothing. Then he changed tactics. "I'm under pressure," he said. "I have debt. I was trying to figure things out." I held his gaze. "So you used my property to pay your debt." He didn't argue, because arguing would only make it worse. The buyer was losing patience now. "I want my money back," he snapped. "Right now." The warehouse manager stepped in. "I'm documenting this incident," he said. "And if necessary, we can call the police." That was the moment Kyle started to panic. And panic does something useful. It strips people down to the truth. Because in that panic, he said the one thing he should have kept buried. "Why are you even keeping all this in a warehouse?" he shot back. There it was. Not stress. Not confusion. Not a mistake. Ownership. In his mind, my property wasn't mine. It was a mine he planned to dig from early. A resource. A shortcut. An inheritance he didn't want to wait for. And in that moment, I thought of my daughter. She didn't know, but her husband had already decided something terrifying. That family wasn't something you protect. It was something you cash out. After the buyer left waiting for his deposit to be returned, I unlocked the unit myself. And I didn't just check if the boxes were still there. That's the mistake most people make. They look for what's missing in bulk. I looked for what was missing in detail. Small items, high-value tools, accessories that don't take space but sell fast, and documents, contracts, copies, paper that means nothing to outsiders but everything to the right person. And just like I expected, things were gone. Not everything, just enough. A specialized tool set, a few newer components, a thin folder of documents, clean cuts, the kind you don't notice unless you know exactly what you're looking for. Which meant one thing: he didn't wait to sell everything. He started small, because small theft doesn't trigger alarms. It buys time. It builds confidence. And once you get away with it once, you go bigger. I turned to Kyle. How many times have you been in here? He answered too quickly. I only came to check things. I cut him off. To check things? And items just disappear? Silence. The warehouse manager stepped forward. We have access logs, he said. If you need them. I nodded. Print them. He did. And the logs confirmed everything. Kyle had been inside this unit multiple times over the past month. Not once. Not twice. A pattern. Which meant this wasn't something he came up with overnight. This was planned. Recon. Photos. Inventory. Listings. Deposit. Step by step. Exactly how someone turns another person's property into fast cash. I didn't argue anymore. I did what needed to be done. The warehouse manager documented everything. Time. Who was present. My confirmation as the leaseholder. Kyle's lack of authorization. The deposit. And the missing items. I signed. They signed. No opinions. Just facts. Then I moved to the next step. Change the lock, I said. Immediately. Every old key invalid. No access without me. I also had them add a note to the system. No one enters this unit. Without written authorization from me. No exceptions. I stepped outside and called Dana. She didn't waste a second. Keep everything, she said. Screenshots, messages, access logs, incident report. Then she added something sharper. And don't settle this privately. He'll try to turn it into a family issue. He'll bring your daughter into it. He'll cry, explain, minimize. That's how people like him survive. They move the battlefield. From facts to emotions. Kyle tried exactly that. Dad, let's just handle this as a family. I looked straight at him. Family doesn't sell my warehouse behind my back. His tone shifted. Annoyed now. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I didn't even blink. You made it big the moment you took that deposit. That's the line. Not when I showed up. Not when I exposed him. But the moment he turned my property into his cash, I took one step closer. From now on, you don't come near this unit again. He stared at me. Not embarrassed. Not sorry. Angry. Because he understood something very clearly. The easy money was gone. And worse. The door he thought he had quietly opened was now permanently closed. That night, I called my daughter over. I didn't want her hearing Kyle's version first. She walked in, already defensive. Dad, could this be a misunderstanding? I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just handed her the evidence. The listing. The line, owner is old. The access logs. The incident report. The buyer's message about the deposit. She read everything, slowly, and I watched her face change. Color drained, eyes unfocused. He actually did this? I spoke quietly. I'm not telling you a story. I'm showing you proof. She called Kyle right there. Put him on speaker. Tell me the truth, she said. Did you try to sell Dad's warehouse? Kyle didn't hesitate. He went with the same line. Your dad is controlling. I was just helping. Helping. That word again. My daughter looked at me. For the first time. She didn't know who to believe. But the evidence didn't hesitate. It answered for me. Her voice broke. He kept saying, it's for the family. I nodded. Family doesn't call me old to sell my things faster. Silence. And in that silence, something shifted. Not loud. Not dramatic, but permanent. Because in that moment, my daughter realized something she couldn't unsee. She didn't just marry a man with problems. She married someone who saw family as leverage, as access. as something to use. Kyle came to my house that night, not to apologize, to explain, and there's a difference. Dad, I'm in a bad spot, he said. I have debt. I just needed to move things once. I was going to fix it. I looked at him. What kind of debt? He avoided it. You don't need to know. I almost smiled. He didn't want me to know what he owed, but he expected to use what I owned to pay it. That told me everything. So I asked the only question that mattered. Then why didn't you ask me? Why did you go behind my back? He didn't think before answering. Because you wouldn't have said yes. There it was. Not desperation. Not confusion. Awareness. He knew it was wrong. That's why he didn't ask. Because asking gives the other person a choice. Stealing doesn't. I nodded slowly. So you didn't need to help. I looked him straight in the eyes. You needed to steal. That's when he snapped. Why are you even keeping all that stuff? He shot back. It's going to belong to my family anyway. My voice didn't change. There is no anyway. You don't have that right. Behind him, my daughter was shaking, because she understood something in that moment. Something you can't unlearn. Kyle wasn't reacting. He was revealing. This wasn't a mistake made under pressure. This was a plan built on a belief that what belongs to someone else today can be taken early, if you're close enough to them. And that's the most dangerous kind of person. Not the one who wants something, but the one who already thinks it's theirs. Dana laid it out clearly. Deposit, listing, access logs, missing items. That wasn't suspicion anymore. That was a case. I'm not saying you have to press charges, she told me. But you have enough to go official if you need to. I didn't want to destroy anyone, but I also wasn't allowed to be soft. Because soft doesn't end the problem. It delays the next one. So I did what matters. I sent a formal notice. Kyle is not allowed near the warehouse. Period. I updated my will. Moved sensitive assets into a trust. Not because I was afraid, because I was done being exposed. I changed every password tied to anything in that unit. Every login. Every document access. And I archived everything. Screenshots. Messages. Logs. Reports. Not for revenge. For leverage. Because the difference between chaos and control is documentation. The buyer got his deposit back. Whether Kyle paid it himself or was forced to, didn't matter. Because Kyle had already lost something bigger. Not money, not access. His mask. From this point on, there was no misunderstanding. No. He was just trying to help. Everyone who saw the evidence understood one thing. He tried to sell something that didn't belong to him. And once that truth is out, you don't get to pretend to be the good guy anymore. My daughter looked at me and said, Dad, I feel like I don't even know who my husband is. I didn't soften it. You do, I said. You just didn't want to see it. She didn't argue. Because deep down, she already knew. She started separating finances, quietly preparing options, not reacting, planning. I didn't push her. I didn't tell her what to do. I just set one line. If someone is willing to sell my property behind my back, they don't get access to your future. That was it. No drama. Just a boundary. Kyle, of course, flipped the script. Called me the one destroying the family. But that's how people like him survive. They don't take responsibility. They redirect blame. Because the truth is simpler than anything he said. The family wasn't broken when I exposed him. It was broken the moment he took that deposit. Everything after that was just the truth catching up. And if there was one thing that mattered most, it wasn't the warehouse. It wasn't the money. It was making sure the next generation didn't grow up inside that kind of thinking. Because a house can survive tension, but it doesn't survive a person who sees family as something to extract from. The twist in this story isn't that the warehouse was exposed. The twist is this. My son-in-law believed he had the right to sell my property, simply because he married my daughter. That's not a mistake. That's a mindset. Because unauthorized selling doesn't start with action. It starts with a decision. Don't ask. Because you already know. The answer will be no. So you go around it, quietly, and you hope you finish before anyone notices. So let me ask you something. If this were you, do you keep it in the family to save face? Or do you lock the evidence, lock the access, and accept the conflict so it never happens a second time? I chose the second. Because the first time, he tried to sell my warehouse. The second time, he won't stop at property. He'll go after something bigger. And by then, it might not be something you can get back.